sports fans? Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us part of your day. We got a lot to talk about. So many NFL stuff going on. I'm excited for this one. Plus, I have not really tapped into it as much, but we got a little college football and, of course, some NBA talk while the season is going on live all over here in Denver, Colorado, Roku, iHeartRadio, and all social media platforms known to man. So much stuff shaking up, especially in New York, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So, listen, I visited New York 6 times in my life, and I know right off the bat of how the sports media is there. It is crushing. I mean, that's usually what it's like when you are in a sports market like New York and you don't win. People are going to talk a lot about you. So this whole thing with the Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, it's getting worse and worse and worse as the week continues to roll on. So, I mean, and listen, for New York Jet fans, I feel bad. For at least the real ones. For those of you who were throwing your pom-poms up, thinking the Jets were going to win the East, and they were going to make the playoffs, and then they were going to end up making the Super Bowl, you could throw those pom-poms away now. So this week, the New York Jets have decided to part ways with general manager Joe Douglas. So this is getting worse every day and every week. And I feel so bad because this is something that Jet fans were very invested in. Okay, they were invested that this team would be better. You bring in Aaron Rodgers and you bring in the red carpet. You think the team is going to get out of its irrelevancy and the team would be much better. And unfortunately, it hasn't. So, listen, I just think a lot of this is because of how Aaron Rodgers always feels. He's prickly, he's sensitive, and he's also pretty arrogant. You know, for a guy his age, coming off an Achilles heel, I mean, he was playing. You saw the regression happening in Green Bay. Not looking like the same quarterback. He's not. And at the same time, you're trusting all this stuff. You're looking at Woody Johnson right now, who's just allowing all this stuff to happen. And look, there are some things that, like, when you don't pay attention to what the regression sides are and you get stuck into historical stuff, you got to get with the program. It's 2024. I mean, you're looking at Aaron Rodgers right now, and he looks like a fossil. He seriously looks like a fossil, okay? And look, I'm not going to deny that by the time that he's retired, I think he will be a Hall of Famer. I mean, I love the fact that, like, he has such a good completion percentage. He also has a Super Bowl on his belt, which that kind of gives him a bit of a break. And then the other thing is he's had multiple MVPs. And this was all with Green Bay, not with the Jets. So when I look at the Jets franchise, here's the things that have gone right for them. Okay, you had a very good coach in Robert Saleh. What did you do? You fired him. Why? Because he called out Aaron Rodgers when it came to the cadence in the huddle and on the field. There's no communication. Nothing seems to be consistent on the offense. There's not. And so once Robert Saleh called out Aaron Rodgers on the cadence, what do you think Aaron is? Okay, he gets prickly and sensitive. He's a grudge holder. What do you think he did? He probably went up to the Johnsons and said, I can't do it with this guy. Can't do it. So they fire Robert Saleh. And you see right now the defense looks terrible. Sauce Gardner's not even playing like himself. So the defensive side of the ball looks really bad. Okay, and they have such good players, such good pieces I like. But you saw the blueprint there from Robert Saleh of how good that defense is. Now with him out, it's bad. What's the next thing? You also demoted Nate Hackett, the offensive coordinator. He's not even calling the plays up on offense. And to be honest with you, I felt like that was the right move they did. Because what does Nate Hackett really have done? Been Aaron's just being his babysitter? Is that what this is? Because I have not seen any sign of creativity from Nate Hackett, not from his time with the Packers and neither his time from Denver. What made you think that he would be creative with the Jets? I think he's just kind of lingering this whole thing on, and it's not looking good. And so you demote him, you bring in a different guy in the coaching staff to be the offensive play caller. Now, it seemed like things were kind of looking a little bit different, but yet it's back to being bad. Here we go again. Oh, and then now the icing on the cake, the Jets have fired Joe Douglas. Why on earth would they fire a GM that's not even close to finishing the season yet? And I think the whole thing is because rumors got out that the Jets would probably not be bringing back Aaron Rodgers. How do you think Aaron felt? He probably went up to the Johnsons and said, this guy ain't doing it. And so now Joe Douglas is gone. I mean, does Aaron Rodgers think we're just idiots? Do you think we don't see that he does not take any accountability for the actions he puts there? I think it's ridiculous. And so because he's sensitive and because he's arrogant and because he's a prickly for him being in his 40s, coming off an Achilles heel surgery, I mean, this is horrible. Listen, I'm going to defend Joe Douglas, and here's why. Okay, Joe Douglas, before Aaron Rodgers arrived, okay, he accounted for a bunch of draft picks. Breece Hall, Jermaine Johnson, Michael Carter II, Garrett Wilson, okay, Elijah Vera-Tucker. He's accounted for a lot of those draft picks. And he's also now accounting for Alofa Shanu, who hopefully he could develop well, but we haven't seen the best of him yet. So Joe Douglas has done a lot of right things. Here's the other thing he's also done right. He traded away Jamal Adams to the Seahawks, and then that's where all those draft picks became. Okay, one big hit. The two bad moves was trading for Aaron Rodgers, but was that really on Joe Douglas, or was that mostly on Woody Johnson because he wants a quarterback? I mean, there's a difference between that. If the owner is banging on the door that you need to get Aaron Rodgers and all the rest of it, what is the GM to do? You know what's funny about this? There was even the tension, like go ask Chris Ballard what the tension was like with Jim Irsay when it came to certain moves. I thought Chris Ballard would have got fired. But no, it did not come to that point. And luckily it didn't. Okay? I'm glad it did. But I don't think Joe Douglas really agreed with this Aaron Rodgers move from the beginning. So, but here's the other thing. All right? Joe Douglas missed on a quarterback. like what, 60% of the league do. Okay, Raiders have missed on a quarterback. Multiple teams, the Giants just benched Daniel Jones. I'll get into that. They all missed on a quarterback. Okay, when you get a franchise quarterback, everything else figures itself out. Everything else gets simplified. You just gotta be able to build around your franchise quarterback. But look, I didn't trust in Zach Wilson in the very beginning. I didn't, because what successes did he have in BYU? Okay, BYU was not facing tough competitions like Bama or Ohio State or Michigan or a lot of these other programs that gets physical. They got a powerful offense. They got great coaching. Like they were not getting that. Okay, so Zach Wilson, I was turned off. But Joe Douglas knew he had to make a move on a quarterback. Do you blame him? I don't. So, okay, just because he missed up on a quarterback doesn't mean he's a terrible GM. But bringing in Aaron Rodgers, this became the step to his downfall and his firing. Because this is what Aaron Rodgers does. He tears apart. Okay? He did this with Mike McCarthy, which I'll be honest with you. I felt like with Mike McCarthy, you saw the writing on the wall. Once he gets too comfortable, the offense looks different. The Packers look very, very different. So at the end of that, you get in Matt LaFleur, and even he tried to do the same thing with Matt LaFleur. He also tried to make Brian Gutekunst look bad. The Packers were like, nope, we're going to draft Jordan Love. There's a reason why that we drafted him, because at some point, we're going to be done with this. And that's what happened. So what? Aaron Rodgers gets a bunch of MVPs. But you saw right there in his last year in Green Bay, he's regressing. He's regressing. Nobody wants to admit that. I don't even think Aaron Rodgers himself wants to admit that he's regressing. I think he's got prickly. I mean, you're watching him on the Pat McAfee show all the time and talking about all this other stuff, and it's just continuously feeding the Jets fans false hope. That's what it is. So now he's making moves based upon emotion. just based upon about how he feels. So, and rumor has it that apparently Woody Johnson is going to be passing this thing down to his brother. It's usually like a 4-year kind of thing. They pass it over. That's usually how it works. So he's giving it to his brother. What do you think his brother's going to honestly do? And rumors are now the Jets, even after firing Joe Douglas, I don't think you should bring back Aaron Rodgers. I really don't. Okay? He may have a market, but it's not going to be a big one. Okay? It's not. He might have a market, but it's not going to be a big one. There are teams who may be desperate for a quarterback. You'll see them. But you got to get out of this business. You really do. I think it's a joke. And right now, the Jet fans are being sold under this. And it's not getting any better. You bring in Devontae Adams. Look at how Devontae Adams is playing. This is not Green Bay. You don't have a whole lot of continuity. Hell, you don't even have consistency. So, Silva, gone. Douglas, gone. Hackett, demoted. What a joke. What an absolute joke. I mean, I'm more disappointed in the Johnson owners than anything else, because they're sitting back and they're allowing this thing to happen. And that's exactly what's happening here. And listen, New York, I've been there 6 times, okay? That sports market will rip you apart, just like Chicago, just like Dallas, just like Los Angeles. It'll tear you limb from limb if you don't fix it and you don't win and you don't find the franchise quarterback. Terrible. But this is outrageous. And it's only going to get worse from here. It's only going to get worse from here. That's why I've said it multiple times on and off the show, but my favorite acronym is just end the sellout. It's getting worse and worse every week. I mean, I can't be kind about this. If Aaron's watching this, I'm being brutally honest because as America's honesty mind, I have to be. I have to be brutally honest. I come from a city that's zero filter in Las Vegas. I live here in Denver now in my new home. And I am zero filter. You can't bash that out of me. This is my opinion. This is my take. So if he's going to get sensitive and prickly with it, then whatever. But I'm just saying, this is just terrible. It's a terrible look for the Jets. It's a terrible look for New York media and the sports world. It's bad. The sports culture, they're sick of this. And Jet fans want better. They got sold from underneath them. And so, yeah, I think this is not going to get any better. It's going to continuously get worse. And I don't know exactly what the solution will be for this. But I think if anything else, because of the way the record's going, they're not going to bring back Aaron Rodgers. Here's a good solution, though, that you do have. Okay? You have Tyrod Taylor. You also have Jordan Travis. You have some bridge quarterbacks there. Now, Jordan Travis, I know, has the leg injury. I don't know what he'll look like post it. I hope he looks good. But I think you should honestly draft a quarterback. It makes perfect sense. But the problem is the quarterback class is pretty thin. It's not as great. You may have some hidden gems from there, but I promise you, though, when you get a franchise quarterback, it makes all the sense in the world. It really does. Everything else comes into fruition. But I'll talk more about New York, but, like I said, I just think with the Jets, this is just horrifying. It's horrible to just continuously watch it because each time when they're losing, the sellout is getting worse and worse and worse every day of every week. It is. So there you go. Aaron Rodgers is just firing everybody. He's bringing in his friends. And, this is what it is. You know what this is? And talking about the Jets, because it's an airplane, it feels a lot like Spirit and Frontier. Okay? You know what you're going to buy. They ultimately will give you all these deals. They will give you all this other stuff. But is the service going to be that great? I'm not here to bash the companies at all, but you know what you're going to get. That's why I fly Southwest. This is why I fly JetBlue. Because I know what I pay for. Great service, and it's honestly just better. And I'm not dealing with all this stuff, this turbulence. I'm not dealing with it. I'd like a smoother landing, like a comfortable one. Something where I don't have tense anxiety every single week for whatever the Jets are going to do next. So, yeah. We got a lot more to break down. Coming up next, because we're going to be talking a little bit more, still sticking with New York, but we're going to go into the other side with the Giants because I think this may be the last days of Daniel Jones. And the other thing is, we're going to go right into the East. I haven't talked a whole lot about it, but I'm going to talk some NBA because things are not looking great. There's some built-up tension in Philadelphia right now for the 76ers, and we will discuss why. So, all right, folks. Well, during the seasons of giving, and you know that we love giving you the best experiences for what your sports betting can give you. That's why BetUS, they are giving out all the best contests every single day, every week. And not to mention, they are always on top of having the best betting lines for you to choose from, and also arguably one of the best sports books on the market for 30 years. BetUS has been doing this for a long, long time. Also, your very own account manager. How can you not love that kind of experience? Your own account manager to give you the best of the experience. BetUS, with every line from NBA, NFL, college football, and more, even in NHL. It's so much fun. And BetUS, they always got you covered on all the best lines and all of the best different analysis to keep you on the edge of your game. When you sign up at BetUS, $50 or more to your deposit, matching up to 125% bonuses in your first 3 deposits that go up to $2,000, which means more times the fun. In the seasons of giving, they're giving you the best experience to check out for yourself. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or seek therapy in your respective states, because BetUS doesn't want you to gamble recklessly. They want you to gamble responsibly and get the best of what BetUS can do for you. That's BetUS, where the game begins.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket, and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Check out the Con Man live on the Sports Corner, coming to a screen near you, giving you the greatest stories from basketball legends you've never seen before, sharing their glory, building the toughness, and how they show off their swag. But only one man knows all that, and that's the Con Man. Join Michael Conceição, the Con Man, at the Sports Corner, Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
I mean, things just continue to get even more interesting if you're living around in New York. So I talked a bit about the Jets. Now I'm going to transition a bit to the New York Giants, because the Giants have also done something that I think was pretty clear, and it was pretty predictable from the beginning, because this is just not working out. So the New York Giants have decided, and after 6 years of having to deal with all this, they are benching quarterback Daniel Jones, and they're going to start their third stringer, Tommy DeVito. Now, they did end up bringing in Tim Boyle from the practice squad, and so Daniel Jones is now going to be the last on the depth chart. There's a reason why for a lot of these things. So what's different about this for the Giants, you kind of understand and you know with what they're doing. This is all for financial purposes, because if they kept in Daniel Jones, and let's say Daniel Jones suffered an injury that next week, then that means the Giants would have to pay $22 million towards his contract. That's what's stated. And the Giants right now, Daniel Jones is not the answer. This is what they're telling you. Like, for 6 years. I mean, do you know how many times the Giants organization have been trying to convince us that, oh, Daniel Jones is, Daniel Jones that? I'm not convinced. I'm not sold. I've never been sold on Daniel Jones. Look, I don't hate the kid. Okay, I think he's a good kid. But how many people, how many quarterbacks from the University of Duke, a basketball program, by the way, have ever succeeded in the NFL? Not a whole lot. I don't even think ever. If I'm being honest, but this just shows you that for the longest time that the Mara family and the Giants organization have been saying, we got to give Daniel Jones a shot. Or what? Not as completely accurate. I think also he gets very frantic in the pocket. And by the way, when Brian Dable came into New York, look at the mess he was dealing with. They've never been in the playoffs for 10 years until Dable did something to where he moved the offense. Okay? He made Saquon Barkley look like the best he's ever looked for a long time with a horrible O-line. Oh, but yet, no, the Mara family felt like, oh, no, Daniel Jones is the one that's right. No, it wasn't. It was Brian Dable the whole time. Have you not seen Brian Dable and what he's transformed Josh Allen into what he is? Granted, Josh Allen, what's different about this is that Josh Allen did not take the teaching for granted. He took it, ran with it, and now look at how happy he is in Buffalo. They just beat Kansas City. Okay? And Dable goes and takes the job, which rightfully so he should. I mean, he's been around in the league and been around in college with a lot of successful coaches over the years. How could you not give him a job? Okay, the Chargers, I thought the Chargers would have hired him, but they passed and went with Brandon Staley. But you know what? We all know the rest of the history. Now they're winning with Jim Harbaugh. Good for them. But when Brian Dable was fresh up on there, I thought the Chargers was a very good organization. Why? Because of Justin Herbert, the weapons, and he would build some type of culture. You come into New York, who haven't made the playoffs in 10 years, and Daniel Jones, I mean, you tried selling me on this, potential that Daniel Jones is their franchise quarterback. No, he's not. Okay, he has not won more games. Okay, he's not winning his division. He's not even like going toe-to-toe against Philadelphia or against Dallas for that matter. Hell, do you really think he's going to go toe-to-toe with the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn and that culture? I don't think so. And so all of this for 6 years could finally come to an end. I think they're done with Daniel Jones. I think what deep down, they realized they made a mistake. Okay, you paid the wrong guy. Nobody. Okay, look, in any business, if you have a successful person in your company, in your business, you should be doing any and everything to ensure he's not walking out the building. Okay, and it's worse when it's against your rival company, your rival, like your division rival, the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's exactly what happened. And mind you, Saquon Barkley is a Penn State alumni. Okay, so the Eagles come into an organization who has a better O-line, who has by far a better quarterback, a very good defense. Okay, and they have a very strong culture. Don't mess it up. Okay, you got to be strong. That's exactly what Philadelphia is. The Giants have not built years worth of relevancy since Tom Coughlin left. Okay, and then since Eli Manning retired. The Giants are now having to try to figure this out, but this is the step in the right direction because now that's going to open up some space. The other thing is you could go get a bridge quarterback. You can. And then you could draft the quarterback, have him sit for X amount of weeks or a year and develop him. And then you may have a franchise quarterback. Like the Jets, okay, the thing what's so similar about both these New York teams is you both sold your fan bases really badly. The Jets sold very hard on Aaron Rodgers, thinking he's the savior, he's the savant, he's the guy that's going to pull you out of the well. No, he's not. He's just digging deeper and deeper into that well until he can't get out. Okay? This is a guy in a darkness retreat. He's going into a darkness pitless hole. Okay? And then you got the Giants, who've been selling us on Daniel Jones for 6 years. He doesn't work. So I think for New York, there should be PSA announcements on both ends because, look, we just watched the Yankees in the World Series. Granted, I think they need a different manager than Aaron Boone because I don't think he's the answer either, but at least the Yankees did something about this. Okay, a team that didn't do so well a year ago in the East while Baltimore, Tampa Bay, hell, even Boston was playing better than them. And then they come in this year and made it arguably one of the most watched World Series. Yankees-Dodgers. The Yankees get back into the World Series. Okay? They're going to figure this out. But the Giants and the Jets, I mean, come on. Both these quarterbacks don't work. You have an aging, brittle, prickly, arrogant quarterback that's just a shell of himself. He's a fossil now. And then you have Daniel Jones that, I'll be honest with you, is arguably one of the most, I think he's one of the best backup options for any of your team. Okay, that's what he is. When you're in New York, you cannot afford to underachieve. New York media will pull you apart. Okay, they already get pissed every day of Wall Street because all the multi-billionaires are making money every single day. Depends on how the stocks are, and everybody gets bitter about it. Okay, so they're winning, but everybody else, things are getting, the costs are going up higher. That's why I'd rather vacation there. I wouldn't live there. I don't even know what I'd do with myself if I was living there every day. But you have expectations. You need to meet them. But I think that if you're the Giants, I mean, they're clearly in play with either Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, or somebody there. But I mean, look, you got a lot of teams there. The Raiders need a quarterback. The Browns, I feel like, could take a quarterback. And now the Giants and the Jets now could take a quarterback. So if you're gonna do this right, you got to do well with Brian Daboll. I never thought he was the problem. I don't think he is. I just think a lot of this is just because of organizational problems. It's all organizational dysfunction. So I didn't trust this for one bit since the get-go. If you really want to know how I wasn't sold on this, I mean, I joke about it all the time. Chase knows this, is once he ran the football all by himself and tripped on his own feet, I'm like, oh, dear God, this is not going to work. I mean, this is just as bad as Mark Sanchez getting the butt fumble on a Sunday night. Against your division rival, the New England Patriots, it's even worse. So, yeah, I wasn't a believer in it, and I don't think anybody else in New York should be either. Chase with the news.
This is the Hot Press.
So I know that we're kind of coming in with news. I've got a lot more built up on my mind. I'm really happy. I think they have got to be better than this. I mean, because it's been a dominance for a long time in the East Coast, and now you're starting to see the wave move to the West or move a little bit more into, like, the Midwest. There's a lot of underdogs that are winning these days. So, yeah.
Yeah, and, I came in late because of what's happening at work. Like, I'm not working as an EMT right now because I haven't passed the test. But working at the hospital as security, man, I just saw one of the most craziest things happen and everything. So it's it is insane. But in terms of New York, we'll stick on that topic. So, Mara, the owner of the Giants, we saw him and how he reacted to the Saquon Barkley news on Hard Knocks. And Joe Shane was just like, listen, we paid the quarterback $40 million. We don't want to pay a running back $12 million and just hand the ball off to him and, rely on him. Why not? He is one of the best in the league. Why don't you do that? That is insane. But now we have seen the article that came out with Woody Johnson and the New York Jets and how screwed up that organization is, because it has just now came out saying that Woody Johnson wanted Aaron Rodgers benched after week 4 when they lost to the Denver Broncos. And at that point in time, they were 2-2, and they said, like, he's just like, I'm pretty sure Aaron Rodgers is the reason why we aren't winning these games. We need to sit him down and bench him for Tyrod Taylor. And that's when he got a bunch of backlash from all of the coaches on the coaching staff.
Yeah, and apparently, and I know, like, because, I mean, here's the thing. Saleh, like, the fact that he rebelled upon there is because he didn't want to give up on something that we know the organization was spending their hard-earned monies for. And so, but this clearly doesn't work. This is why it's all on the Jets organization at the end of the day, because now you are seeing with what a potential culture it could have been like with Robert Saleh, with that defense. I mean, look, before Aaron Rodgers got there, by the way, when the Jets beat the Packers that one week, you remember that with Zach Wilson? That looked like a college sideline. It looked like BYU literally just won. Like, they won a big game. It was meaningful. That's what that looked like. It looked like a college sideline. So now you take that out of the picture. He's fired. The defense is regressing. Sauce Gardner's not playing his best. And then you demote Nate Hackett because why is he even still around? He's not that creative. He's not that innovative on offense, and you can clearly see that. And now, look, I've said this when the program started. Like, I had a whole segment up on this, but I defended Joe Douglas for this reason, because look at some of the moves he's accounted for. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Elijah Vera-Tucker, Michael Carter II, Jermaine Johnson. And not to mention, he traded away Jamal Adams to acquire a lot of that draft capital. And that's what those picks have become. So just because, and look, you knew they had to take a swing at quarterback. Okay, I'm not going to blame the Jets for that. But 65% of the league all miss on quarterbacks. Big deal. You know what you do? You go draft another one. Go draft another quarterback. That's what you do. So I'm not going to hold it over his head because he missed on a quarterback with Zach Wilson. But look, I was not sold on this. I mean, BYU is not playing Ohio State, Alabama, LSU. They're not playing those top dog programs.
I mean, we've seen small town quarterbacks, succeed as well. Look at Miami of Ohio with Ben Roethlisberger. He wasn't playing great competition, and he succeeded.
But the difference is he came into a built culture, right? So that's the thing. And I think because, and I'm not going to say he was lucky, but I think he was more appreciative of the fact that he had Bill Cowher there, because that's an organization who has not had a long list of turnover of coaches. Okay, that went from Chuck Noll to Bill Cowher and then right to Mike Tomlin. And yet has had great defenses. They've never missed on offensive weapons. I mean, ever. I think the only thing you have to question is the offensive line, but look at their successes. So that's why I'm like, even if you took somebody from like a group of 5, okay, if you took a quarterback from a group of 5, the only thing is that you have to have a structurized culture. I mean, you put them in a market like New York or Chicago or Dallas, that's too pressurizing, especially Dallas if you're the Cowboys. Because next thing you know, you got Jerry Jones lurking over your shoulder, and then this is exactly what happens. So, yeah. I think it's time they move on from this business, because the fact you're firing a GM that's not even close to ending the season, and then not to mention too, they're going to transfer power because it's going from one Johnson to another with their brother. And rumors, and this is actually now a source that it's credible, they plan to not bring back Aaron Rodgers. So go ahead. Be sensitive, be prickly. They're not taking you back. Now, I'm not saying you won't have a market, but the market is not going to be as strong as most people believe it is.
Yeah, and it's crazy because Woody Johnson was also The sole reason why they didn't let Alan Lazard and a second-round pick go to the Broncos for Jerry Jeudy. He's the sole reason why they got Devontae Adams, and he is not well liked by a bunch of other players. Let's hope the other Johnson brother has more common sense when it comes to running the organization, because if what you said is true and they're transitioning power over to the other Johnson brother after 4 years of not having the success, we're going to wait and see what can happen. But in other news, there is rumors that are swirling around that Mike McCarthy is going to be gone after this season.
Well,
and Deion Sanders will be the ticket for the Dallas Cowboys. And with that being said, there's also rumors that Dak Prescott could be on the move to either the Tennessee Titans, the New York Giants, or the Oakland Raiders for Shedeur Sanders to come in and be the next quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys.
So I've heard a lot about this because, it's been spiraling around in a lot of the, the big top dog shows. But my thought on this is because, it's typical of Jerry Jones. He never wants to get rid of his Cowboys. He loves them very much, And so the thing about it is like, look, I'm very impressed with what Deion Sanders has done here in Colorado. The fact of doing this in a 2-year period, pulling them out from years of irrelevancy and years of not being bowl eligible. They were averaging 1 to 2 wins every year. That's what the program has been. But my takeaway on this is because, Mike McCarthy, Troy Aikman said it best. The longer the years carry on with Mike McCarthy, the more comfortable he becomes. And you never want to be too comfortable. My wife tells me this all the time. You never want to be you want to be comfortable, but you don't want to be too comfortable to where now you missed your eye on the ball. Where now you kind of get a little bit laxadays. You say that you're big on analytics and I remember what Mike McCarthy was saying before he took the job. He's saying he learned about analytics. No, he didn't. All it is that you are just taking the talent that the Dallas Cowboys have bestowed upon you and make the offense work. That's all you're doing. And so, but the other thing is like the Dak Prescott thing. What's funny is, and this is actually kind of true, because a lot of people are like, he has a no trade clause. Do you know how fast that was for Russell Wilson to literally waive that and go to Pittsburgh? And yet, not only that, the Denver Broncos for the next 2 years now have to pay for his contract because that's the business they got into. I don't think it's a business they should have done like that. I would not pay a quarterback who hasn't hit the field yet that early if I don't know if he gels with his offense. I just wouldn't have done that. But Patton, I think he's learned his lesson, and I think Bo Nix, honestly, is what saved his job. Okay, he's the outlier. But my thing with Dak, there will be a market for him for sure. There's not ever gonna not be a market for him. But I think if teams are that are desperately needing a quarterback, I'm looking all around the league for quarterbacks. The only thing is I think what may end up happening is that if they're going to make the deal worthwhile, you are not going to take on that contract. My guess is that if they make a move, they're going to ask for a restructure. They're going to ask for a lot of this because they don't want to feel trapped. That's what I would say some smart organizations should and would do. Because, once you take on the hefty amount of that contract, the Broncos look very good, but their talent is going to be thin for 2 years until that Russell Wilson contract is done, and then they can go and buy players. So there's an opportunity for everything, but I think with the Cowboys, they have a multitude of things going wrong. They need picks. They need an O-line. They need to, get a couple defensive pieces. I think they also need to get another wide receiver, but they need an O-line, and I think they also need a healthy run game. I'm watching Ashton Ginty every single week, and look, the clock is ticking. You can't pass on this kid. Look, the Zeke Elliott thing, I know was a business, but that was all Jerry. at the end of the day. It was terrible business, in my opinion, but you've learned, hopefully they learned their lesson and not to do that again. But I've watched this Cowboys team when they had Tony Dorsett and Emmitt Smith and Julius Jones, and then all the way to DeMarco Murray. I've seen this story multiple times. It's nearly impossible to literally pass up on a talent like James. Seriously.
Yeah, it definitely really is very, very difficult to pass up on something like that. And that would just give the Cowboys offense that much more of a boost, especially since the run game has been non-existent all season long.
Yeah.
But in other news, one of the Browns players, one of the most electrifying players that we've seen come out of college, and probably a top 5, if not top 7 at his position, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah.
Yeah.
We have now come to realize that he may never play football again because of the neck injury he sustained due to the hit that he had on Derrick Henry in that Ravens game. And that is so terrifying and gut-wrenching to see, because not only in his 4th year with the team and signing a massive contract extension for 3 years and, making himself well-known.
Very talented player.
He is now, going to get more scans done to see if he's able to come back on the field. And the fact that he may not be able to is very, very heartening.
Yeah, I mean, JOK, like I said, I watched this kid in Notre Dame. Very talented. Because Notre Dame has been known for very good offensive linemen. We're watching Joe Alt right now, but they're also very good at pivotal defensive positions. I watched Cam Hart, one of their defensive captains. I've watched Manti Te'o. They have guys, but and so
Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, Kyle Hamilton, another one, very physical, and so. JOK, as talented as he is, this is a crushing blow. But now think about this. The Cowboys had this issue with Leighton Vander Esch. That's where he had to now force himself to retire, similarly with a neck injury. It took him out. But I really hope that whatever the test results do come back. If this ends the career, we've had a long list of players who have gone out in injuries that have cost them their careers. But
Ryan Shazier.
Ryan Shazier. Johnny
gosh.
Knox. There have been so many players I've watched over the years that it's gut-wrenching when you watch a player like that's that talented that their careers had to be cut short because of career-ending injuries. So, I hope the best of luck for him. Honestly, with whatever the scans and whatever the decision may be. But I know when you got a family and when you've got your long-term plan ahead of you, you got to make the best decision for yourself at the end of the day.
Yes, sir. And last but not least, there was beef between Myles Garrett and TJ Watt with the whole Defensive Player of the Year conversation that happened. I don't know if you had seen that or not. But they asked Myles about it, and TJ said that he has been disrespected in the past before, and didn't think that Myles deserved it. And Myles came out and said, "I never once said that TJ didn't deserve his, and that I was snubbed out of it. So I think that he should show me a little bit more respect." And it's going to be a lot of tempers flaring up tomorrow against the Browns and Steelers.
Right. That's what I'm saying. If you're really gonna go throw down like that, wait for tomorrow. That's literally what it is. Listen, this is an in-division rival game. It never fails. So it's we've watched this over the past few years. We watched with the Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph thing. That's just how hard the AFC North plays. That's what you're going to get. So I think Thursday, it's going to be really interesting because for the Pittsburgh Steelers to go back-to-back AFC North rival matchups, I mean, they won a pretty crazy one against Baltimore, but they've always had their number. And then to have to go on the road in Cleveland to play the Browns, which is usually never an easy environment sometimes. If you're an AFC North matchup, that's why I'm like, as much as I love the built-up hype, it's a stay-away game for me because, again, it's one of my betting rulings. I never bet on these AFC North rival matchups because I don't know what I'm going to get. I mean, I just watched the Browns upset the Ravens. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. So that's why I'm like, some of these games are usually never predictable because it's just so good.
Yeah, I would agree because we always play the Ravens very close. We have the Bengals number over the past few years. And the Steelers, we at least take one out of 2 games every year with them. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah. No, Thursday is going to be great. Prime predictions tomorrow. It's going to be interesting to really kind of break all this down. So
I will not be on because it is my birthday, so I'm going to hang out with family.
Well, there you go. Hopefully a birthday there for you. A birthday win, maybe. If we believe Jameis that much, maybe we might get something there.
I hope so.
Jason with the news.
This is the Hot Press.
So something I wanted to bring up, I'll keep Chase up on here. So I apologize for all of my listeners on here that can't see it, but I wanted to break this down. So the college football playoffs, I mean, this is getting more and more intense and exciting, and I'm all for it. So here's what we've seen from the latest bracket that everybody is breaking down and talking about. So as you know, BYU, a crucial loss against Kansas, they are now sitting right at the last spot in the first round, at the 12 spot. So it would be BYU, Ohio State, Alabama, Notre Dame, Georgia, Penn State, Ole Miss, and Indiana. And then the 4 teams that have been playing very well is Oregon, Texas, Miami, and Boise State. So what does this really kind of break down? So if I'll be honest with you, with all these teams in the college football playoff, the ones that are on the lower ranked team, I think outside of BYU, because to be honest with you, I think Ohio State would take care of business against BYU. BYU just has not, for the longest time, I don't think they've really ever faced against competition like a Big Ten or an SEC, any of those programs of that caliber. So I think Ohio State would do their business against BYU. That may be the only seeded team I don't have a bunch of confidence in. But I think they've had a very good season, but I don't have that much confidence. Georgia, Penn State, I feel as though Georgia, because of Kirby Smart and him being in the playoffs multiple times, I think is probably going to give James Franklin a bit of hell. Okay, I like Penn State. I really do. But Georgia's track record, they do this all the time. And so that's going to lead them to have to play Texas. And then there's Ole Miss, Indiana. Now, this could be different this weekend because you have Ohio State and Indiana. Now, the 2 things that could be very beneficial to Indiana is either they beat Ohio State. It doesn't matter how they do it. I think if they beat Ohio State, they'll move up into the ranks. And I think Ohio State, they may end up moving probably to like the closest to like the 11, maybe the 10 to 12 spot. That may be the only reason is because that will be their second loss. They're never going to they're never going to leave. So this was crazy because Colin Cowherd literally made a take saying that if Ohio State lost, they're out of the playoffs. What? You're not going to leave a brand like Ohio State out of the college football playoffs. That's just absurd. And that'll be their second loss. Okay. But the thing is, no program in college football that has 3 losses is going to make the playoffs. Let's just get that. Let's just be real. They're not going to do that. I mean, if Alabama lost for the 3rd time, Do you think the committee is honestly going to throw a bone for Alabama after that? No.
Yes, they will, because the committee is SEC bias, always SEC bias. LSU, Alabama, and Georgia, no matter what has happened, one of those three teams, regardless of if they got 3 losses, will be in there.
Oh, I don't know. Look, Alabama is 9th. If they lost this weekend, they are not going to be in. And I don't think they should. I have spoken to Alabama, like people that are big fans of Alabama, and they said if we lost for the 3rd time, we should not even be in. Like they should not, because this is not Saban we're talking about. I mean, this is a new regime with Kalen DeBoer, and so this is different. That's why I'm like, for as much as we know about the SEC and as much as we know about Alabama, I think the committee would not bring bias in the middle of it. I would be in shock and awe if they do. But realistically, I don't think a 3-loss team, I don't care who you are, I don't think a 3-loss team should be in the playoffs. That's just my personal opinion. I mean,
it's hard because, like, with a brand like Georgia, a brand like Alabama, regardless of if they have 3 wins, we have always seen the committee show favoritism to the SEC. We have seen them show favoritism to Bama, to Georgia, or to LSU. We've always seen it year in, year out. And I know that Bert was just like, well, combined out of all of them, they've got the most national titles out of any other conference in the entire college football. But that still does not matter. If your team is not that good or you're not playing that good, you should not be, even remotely close to being ranked that high. Like, Alabama went from the number 5 team in the country down to 11 after their 2nd loss. If they had a 2nd loss, when they lost to Vanderbilt, they jumped from 1 to 4 or 1 to 5. I'm like, dude, you should have dropped down to like
here's the difference. They didn't lose that drastically to Vanderbilt. That's the difference.
You still lost to Vanderbilt. Like, that's a terrible team.
And that's the thing is nobody like, there was, if there were some people out there that think, Vanderbilt's not anything, they should really take a look at that program. Vanderbilt really got guys. They got guys, and they gave Alabama fits. But the difference is, and you even watched that game against Tennessee. Okay, so they did not lose. Like, here's the thing. If Vanderbilt literally dog-walked Alabama, of course they would be dropping them that lower than 5. But because it was not a dog walk, it was literally like a as close of a point margin as you can make it. That's why they dropped them up into the points. But then the other thing is, you then had to go against an SEC matchup against Tennessee, and they were not solely prepared after that. I mean, you saw it convincingly how that game looked. Tennessee won, but even they didn't climb up as high because they both looked at each other like they're both beaten up. They both have kind of like they both were coming off of weeks that they played terribly. And so in the end, one of those teams was going to lose. And sadly, it was Alabama. But they had to be honest about it. But here's the thing, though, I will say.
Yeah.
Alabama is probably in the worst spot if this were to happen. Because right now, like Joel Klatt mentioned something about this. All the other teams, and I think, honestly, we're going to see some changes because I'm going to see what this weekend looks like with Ohio State and Indiana. That could change. But as I've said, the 2 things that are going to benefit Indiana in the playoffs is either they beat Ohio State, which I don't know if they will. And then the other thing is they lose to Ohio State, but they lose by a 1 to 3 point margin. That's the one thing that's going to benefit them because they get dog walked by Ohio State in Columbus. Indiana's out. And that's just the reality. Okay, I love Kurt Cinetti, but Indiana as a football program has not built that track record of relevancy. They've been a basketball program. Okay, so they get dog walked by Ohio State this weekend. I promise you they are going to be out. They're just not going to consider that. But that's why they have to lose by that point margin. They have to. They have to make it a game. If they don't, then that's where they're out. But here's the thing. So Joel Klatt was saying that a lot of these teams, the teams that are in the lower rankings, that's where teams that are in the high ranks should be afraid of, because those are teams that are going to play that week, build up, and go on some type of run. You've seen this before, where there were some of those low-ranked teams that come in, even when we watch the NFL playoffs, a low-seeded team that comes off of a week, has to play wild card weekend, and then they come in and they make it a hell of a game on like divisional and maybe potentially get to the championship. That's just what history has brought. So, but the only seeding spot that sucks is the 9 spot that Alabama's in. Because here's why. You're Alabama, you got to play Notre Dame, a physical program, right? Then you got to play Oregon. If you're lucky enough that you get past that, you probably would potentially have to play Ohio State. That's not a fun spot that I want to be in.
And Ohio State's not going to make the same mistake that they made the first time around with Oregon.
Oh, no.
They're going to lock down, and they're going to play a lot better. And here's also another reason why I think the committee is biased to the SEC. Because when Ohio State was ranked number 1 and lost to Oregon, who was number 3, they moved them down to 6. When Alabama was number 1, they lost to an unranked Vanderbilt team, and they dropped them to 5. It's just like, how are you going to drop a team that lost by 1 point to a number 3 team in the nation down to 6, and you're going to drop a number 1 team lost to an unranked team by 5 points down to only 5 spots? That is ridiculous.
But see, this is the thing, though. That was a very competitive game at the end of that, because we know, like, look, Oregon has been tested 3 times this season. Okay, Idaho, Boise State, and Wisconsin this past weekend. I mean, good God, Wisconsin made that a hell of a game. I was shocked, but like the Kansas City Chiefs, they were treading on this for quite a while. I mean, you couldn't do this for very long. Okay, so that's why I think Oregon, I understand they're a 1 seed right now, but sometimes those 1 seeds get more of the pressure than anything else. But either way, like the 9 spot, I think is what's terrible. But when I look at all the rest of them, I mean, I think that tasty one is going to be Ole Miss, Indiana, because I think either one of those, they could give it a game against Texas. They could probably give it a game against Steve Sarkisian's Texas Longhorns. Because I think if it's Indiana, and especially with how if Indiana plays against Ohio State. Now, here's the other thing. They could very much end up Ohio State could very much end up getting into the top seeds. So Boise State and Miami could be 3 programs right there that may not be high seeds for very long. So if you're Ohio State, I mean, I think preferably you should at least get into the high spots. But I think if you see exactly how the rest of because I'll be honest with you, I think BYU, that Big 12, I think Colorado's going to win it.
They might.
Colorado has enough momentum. I mean, what they did against Utah this past weekend was that good that I think that becomes a threat in the Big 12.
I mean, they got to make it into the playoffs first. They're at 16 right now. They got to win the next 2
They
games.
are, but here's the thing, though. They win the Big 12. They're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna take a champion from the Big 12 and the ACC, and then of course Boise State would be the one team at the group of 5. So that's why Colorado has kind of a very good pathway to the playoffs. All they got to do is just win out the rest of their games, and then they got to go into the Big 12 championship, and they got to win that to get their ticket in there. But I think Colorado has more momentum than I think BYU does. I mean, that's just pure honesty. It can't. And Kansas, is there to play spoiler. That's what they're doing. But I just don't think. I think right now with how Deion Sanders has put this Colorado team together and how they've been feeling themselves ever since those losses, they have been on cloud nine now ever since. And Warren Sapp, by the way, his D-line is already feasting. They've been playing very good. So that's why I think all the momentum is going to be there in Colorado. Now, I think to Indiana's point, I mean, Indiana, I feel like could be the threat of the playoffs. Because if I looked at this, Ohio State would be beating BYU. That's convincing. I'm not going to go more into details. But now that game against Boise State, I mean, you're probably going to be you're going to be tested physically because Boise State's just known to do that. Their D-line, Ashton Jeanty. Now, San Jose State did give him a game, and so did Nevada Reno. But they can fight back. And I've seen Boise State do this before. Now, look, they may have lost to Oregon, but the difference was they only lost to Oregon by 3. They were giving the Ducks fits. Dan Lanning didn't even have any answers for that. But that's why I was like, they can play very physical. You just have to be prepared for it when it comes. So
I got a prediction. It's going to be Ohio State and Miami in the national championship.
Wow. Really think so?
I really do think so because
over Texas and Oregon and
I mean, here's the thing. Like, you've got either Indiana or Penn State. I mean, if that is who, the final, few are, obviously Indiana is going to change with the loss to Ohio State if they lose, or if they win, they're going to go up in the rankings. But whoever they play there, I think Miami will win. And then between Ole Miss and Texas, we have seen Texas struggle with a lot of, high-powered offenses. And Cam Ward has carried the Miami offense all the way through the season. And if the defense can just hold out here and there, I think Xavier Restrepo and Cam Ward are going to, light the playoffs on fire.
But here's my problem with that, with Georgia, because, look, I mean, we watched Georgia last year against Florida State. They dog-walked the hell out of them. And that's against ACC. So any team in the ACC that goes up against the SEC it's a hell of a challenge. Look, I love Cam Ward. Don't get me wrong, I do, and I like with what Mario Cristobal has done in Miami. But let's be honest here, the ACC ain't like the SEC, and I understand Georgia came off of a horrid loss against Ole Miss, okay, and Bama took it to Georgia. But I'm telling you right now, I don't think Kirby Smart himself is going to want to put Georgia in that kind of position. I just don't see that. I know they're limited with Carson Beck. I mean, look, I know what he's going to be as a prospect. I do. He's not going to be that kind of NFL prospect. But I understand from the program standpoint, I just don't see Georgia being that kind of team, especially against an ACC, that they're going to allow that to happen.
I mean, that's true, but like we also saw Georgia struggle against Kentucky for an entire first half where they only scored 13 points.
But remember, though, that
the Miami offense is more high-powered than what Kentucky's is.
But remember, though, that's SEC. That's what I'm saying. I know, like, because with Kentucky and Georgia, I mean, SEC matchups, you know what you're going to get. But the ACC, look, I'll be blunt. Clemson and all those teams there don't have that kind of firepower of what SEC has brought to the table for years. Okay, I'm just being blunt. That's my opinion with it. But I think I still would hope this would be a hell of a game. Don't get me wrong. I would. But I've seen this history before. I mean, I would love to really like put my money on the ACC, but that's just too much. That's too much to ask for against an
Miami and Ohio State in the national championship. I'm calling it.
All right. I mean, I'm not gonna disagree with it, but I'm like, my thing is that I just watch all these programs, all these teams here in college football, and I'm like, Ohio State cannot afford to not get into the national championship. They don't. Look, you know what the state of Ohio is going to feel like. You know that they're all going to be calling for Ryan Day's head. And the other thing is, because it's not going to matter much to Oregon. And the reason why that I say that is because Dan Lanning's building a culture there. Okay, it has not fully lived up to its potential. Okay, I loved it when Bo Nix was there, but it's not quite there yet. They're building something. Okay, that's why I'm like, eventually, when all those things start, like when you get the silver lining in this program, Oregon eventually is going to win. They eventually are going to win. I don't know if it's this year, but all I know is Dan Lanning is going to try to build a culture. I just know that from the Kirby Smart tree and how Georgia had been a powerhouse. That's just what Dan Lanning's going to do. Texas, I mean, you know how much the pressure's on Steve Sarkisian. Okay, and they have so many guys on this roster, but the problem is that they have played in weeks where they got opened up. That was hard, but this is exactly, college football fans, this is what we've been asking for. Okay, no team in the SEC is safe. All right, no team in the Big Ten is safe. And I mean, you kind of already know right now with Big 12 and ACC and Group of 5. But none of those teams, when they faced off against each other, nobody was safe. The strengths of the schedule was amazing. This is what we asked for. So there's going to be some teams that are going to be playing their hardest. And I just think if I looked at this, I think Indiana is a team I watch out for, and I would have to see what this weekend will look like with them. I just don't think, as much as I have a soft spot for James Franklin, I just don't think Penn State would be that program. I just don't think so. I feel like they would be in a position like what happened to BYU this weekend. Okay, so I'm kind of on the fences with Penn State. But as far as everybody else, the only thing that sucks is that number 9 spot that Alabama's in. I just think that's a harder road. You'd have to literally go back to back against Big Ten teams there. Back to back.
Good. I mean, I hope Alabama gets knocked out either in the first round or second, because nobody wants to see Alabama in the playoffs anymore. Nobody wants to see Georgia in the playoffs anymore.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I get it for marketing purposes and for brand. I mean, you can't not have a playoff without those programs in there, especially Ohio. What? Okay.
You can have a playoff without Alabama and Georgia in it, and still make it a very fun playoff like situation to watch.
Good hell! Come on. If I told you that, look, we would be okay if Ohio State was out of the playoffs, you'd be saying the same thing.
Listen, at this point in time, I want to see something different. I don't want to see the same damn programs in there every single year in and year out. This is like what it was with the NFL when the New England Patriots made the playoffs year in and year out and year in and year out, and nobody else got a chance to make it. And what happened when other teams got a chance to make it? It was the most watched playoffs that we've seen, or the most watched Super Bowl that we've seen in that time frame.
You want to know why that was? Because teams got better. You got to be better. I mean, look, I hate to be the guy. I hate to be that guy that has to literally drop this mic and literally say, look, if you're tired of seeing Alabama and you're tired of seeing Georgia, do better in your program. Do better in your recruitment. I hate to be that guy, but it's the facts. Because
it's hard. It's hard to compete to the big school, though.
It's hard. But that's the nature of the beast.
You can't go to the number 1 wide receiver or the number 1 QB in the country and be like, "Hey, I'm going to go ahead and offer you, $4 million to go play for, friggin', I I don't know, go play for like Miami or something. And it's just like, no thanks. I'm going to go take the $2 million and go play for Alabama. It's just like, why would you do that?
I mean, let me be honest with you, Chase. This playoff, this is an invitation to the gala. This is not an invitation to a frat house party. Okay, that's this is just not what this is. Okay, you and I are going to be walking into that damn thing, and I better hope that you walk into that thing with your tie, tucked up, and we're wearing our good suits, because that's what this is. I'm not going to dress up like I'm going to some toga party at a frat house. Like that. That's not what this college football playoffs is. You want, because this is your invitation to something that you don't like. I think a perfect example. I love it when my wife, sometimes whenever it's our anniversaries, and sometimes whenever we just have these special dinners, we go to these steakhouses. You don't see us in there on a daily basis because it's so damn expensive. But that's our invitation to a sweet treat. It's it's really how you respond to it, right? Are you just going to turn around and go, God, I should have preferred a burger? Are you kidding me? I mean, you're talking about center cut, like ribeye steaks that is just medium rare. I'm not complaining. I'm not over there going like, oh, well, let's go over to Taco Bell, at 12 in the morning. Let's go over to Mickey D's and go and give us a $5 meal deal. I'm not going to do that. Like,
I mean, it's difficult to say though, because I could sit here and enjoy a college football playoff without Alabama or Georgia in there, because I guarantee you go up to any college football fan that is not a Bama fan or not a Georgia fan, and they'd be like, yeah, I could deal with them not being in the playoffs and everything. And here is another example of how you can tell the committee is SEC or Alabama or Georgia bias, is when Florida State went 12-0 last year, and Alabama went 11-1, and they put Alabama in with one loss over a 12-0 Florida State team.
Oh no! Look here. I really hope it wasn't you that was going to say that. I thought I would have known you better up on it. Come on, have I not taught you anything? Like, I'm gonna say this before. I've said this before. I'll say this again. You just saw with what Florida State looked like. Okay, here's the thing. The reason they weren't in the playoff, and I'll be honest with you with this one, and I'm going to move on from this, but they did not beat Louisville in the ACC championship convincingly. They didn't dog walk them. That was like literally a 16-10 game. That's why the committee, they looked at that and said, if we put Florida State in the playoffs, do you really think that they're going to have that much firepower to stop Texas? To stop John Harbaugh in Michigan? What?
I mean,
it's
a 12-0 team that got cheated out of a playoff spot.
Listen, great season, but I'm sorry, but I'm not going to I would gouge my eyes out if I literally saw a team that, look, no disrespect, okay, they had a great season, but I would gouge my eyes out if they literally look at what happened in the one national championship between Georgia and TCU. Look at how bad the ratings were in that game, because that matchup should have been Georgia-Michigan, if you really want me to be honest. But Jim Harbaugh and Michigan let that roll right by them, and TCU wins that, and then what happened? They put a 63 burger in the national championship. You really think
TCU was not undefeated though that year? But
here's the thing. I'm not spending my hard-earned money to watch TCU get a 63 burger.
No,
I'm not going to do that.
I'm not either.
Look, I was okay. If you really want me to be honest, me and my wife were literally sitting on the bar side at one of the local bars. I was enjoying my cocktail more than I was of watching Georgia just steamroll TCU. Come on. And that's what I'm saying. This is why the committee's paying attention. I know people would say that they're so SEC biased and all the rest of it, but they paid attention. They just said, look, TCU got steamrolled. They are looking out for viewership. Fans don't want to see that. Look, a perfect example. The World Series between the Diamondbacks and the Rangers. Now, granted, I was happy the Rangers won the World Series, okay? To me, as a baseball fan, I love matchups like that. I'm with you on that. But the viewership was so crash-landed down. Why? Because they would have loved to have seen the Phillies, the Dodgers, or better yet, they would have at least seen maybe the Guardians or maybe even one of those teams in the American League, like one of them. And then look what we got. Look at what we got this past World Series. Yankees, Dodgers. Look at how many viewerships that we got there. Like the committee's not stupid. They watch this all the time. They don't want that. Like, I look, no disrespect to any of the programs from there, but I'm not going to pay my hard-earned tax dollars to watch a Panera Bread Tech or a roast beef steak literally get dog walked in the college football playoff against Georgia, Bama, and Texas for all that. For all I care,
I will say this: if Jordan Travis did not get injured, I feel like it would have been a whole different story.
But that's the thing, though, is that look, you knew how different that program was once they lost their one-star piece. Okay, I know people want to vouch for the defense. I loved Jared Verse. I love Braden Fisk. I loved how that defense looked. But ACC doesn't match well with SEC. I mean, we just watched that. By the time they played Georgia, Georgia literally steamrolled them. And then that's their broken truth. That's the reality. I'm sorry. Okay, like, look, what do you want me to do? Hand you a cookie? Give you a cookie for like all this? Get better at your recruiting. Get better at your program. I mean, because look at this. This is why it solved everything. Because by the time that by the time they use the term travesty, they get steamrolled by Georgia, and now look what's happened at Florida State. They are nowhere even near it. Okay, so that's why it summed up everything. Had they not done that, and had they actually bucked up, get better in your recruiting, strengthen up your program, not go and trade for a quarterback who literally hasn't done hell. Okay, DJ Uiagalelei's not moving the needle for me. But that's what they did. And by the way, I knew that the second when week 0 started in Dublin against Georgia Tech, I picked Georgia Tech. You were my witness for that. I said, Florida State is going to have such a hard time against Georgia Tech because Georgia Tech is physical. Sorry, look. What do you want me to...
Georgia Tech beat Miami, too. That was their first loss of the season.
And listen, my wife tells me this all the time. I mean, I'm just built this way, okay? She's telling me something like, how could you not be compassionate about it? It's just like how these programs are. How could you not be compassionate for Florida State? How could you not be compassionate? I'm sorry. But I have a hard time feeling bad for you when your program isn't up to its higher standards.
It's hard to recruit, though. It is hard to recruit top-notch players to a small town program.
It was hard for Colorado, and that's been an average 1 to 2 win program. Once Deion got there, it changed a lot of things.
Outside of Shador and Travis Hunter, who else do they have?
Look, I'm not saying that it's not possible. But what I'm saying is like, if you know you have a track record of this not looking right, then change it. I mean, look, it's like our dietary habits. It's also our addictions. If you know you have a problem somewhere, you got to get to the core. Don't just beat around the bush. This may be the most real talk I think you've ever seen me do in this show. Like, but that's how I am. I'm sorry if I don't have sympathy and I don't have compassion for you, but this is how I was built. This is how I was taught. Okay? If you want to be the best, then get better. If you want to be healthy, change your diet. If you want to be the best version of yourself inside and out, go and seek therapy. Go to programs to stop the addictions. Like there are things. Listen, my maker gives me windows of opportunities. You don't think I'm going to take it? I mean, for the sake of a better life, for the sake of a better program, the hell yeah, I would. I mean, we break down a lot of these NFL teams all the time. How many times do I tell you that, like Dallas, they should have taken advantage of that, but they didn't? Okay, when you know that there is something there that is standing in your way, fix it. Sorry, but that's just how I feel.
The difference between NFL and college, though, is that the NFL, you can draft the players of your choice, but ultimately the ownership could be the sole reason your team is bad. Like, you could have the best GM drafting the best players and have the best coach, and if your ownership is making poor decisions, they are going to be crappy, aka Woody Johnson. But for college football, though, it's hard to bring top-tier talent to smaller schools, especially if they're paying them big bucks for the NIL, because they know that if they want to be a first-round pick, they have to go to a big-name program in order to succeed.
Well, I mean, look, we're gonna watch arguably the best college prospect in the country come from Colorado. Like, that is an outlier. Okay, that's the thing. If you know you have something special, of course you're going to want to go to some of these top dog college programs. Of course you are. I mean, I had one kid, and I promise you, he will be back up on the show by the time that he's committed out of high school. I'm serious. There's one kid that I know is going to be something special. I've said it before. I think this kid could be the next Tyreek Hill. I'm not joking. This kid does track. The kid has great hands. He's small, but you know what? That hasn't stopped him from getting separation. And I mean, he is discombobulating a lot of these corners. And that's in Texas, a big state, like a big football state. Okay, to do that in Texas is very impressive. All right, because there are a lot of top dogs. They invest in football all the time. If you watch, if you watch the documentary on Texas football, go watch it. All those high schools, they invest that much money up into them, and man, do those schools play hard. Okay, from Nevada schools where I was up at, they are not even close to what Texas is. Not even close. So my takeaway on it is that, yeah, of course, but I just am like, if you get better in your I mean, look at what USC looks like right now. I mean, they thought Lincoln Riley was going to be their savior. He was going to be their savant. It's been a program dysfunction since Pete Carroll left. They're not recruiting kids in Southern California. You know who's taking them all? Oregon. Texas, all those teams over there. I mean, it is fascinating to see that the Pacific Northwest has taken a lot of those kids in the Southern California states. Like
Miller Moss is transferring to Michigan.
Well, look at that. Finally, Michigan could have a quarterback, somewhat. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is like, look, you watch these programs make moves all the time. I mean, look, this was a fun last segment of the show here. I mean, we're being brutally honest here, because this is what college football does to us. But the thing is, college football, it's classic because there are so many coaches who come in and out of this thing. And by the way, did you know that there is rumors that Ray Lewis could be coaching at FAU? Did you know that? He's following in the steps, in the footsteps of what Deion Sanders did in Jackson State. Like, these coaches, that's what I'm saying. There's a revolving door of coaches. And the NFL, oh no, it is different. Billion-dollar owners are impatient. You expect to see results now, but to do that, and especially when you are in Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, Dallas, I mean, you have to be a culture-setting coach to deal with that kind of pressure. I mean, that's just a given. So, that, like, look, many of those opportunities in the NFL, it's fun and all, but those are so challenging as hell. Whereas in college football, you could be like, this is the thing. Deion went into Jackson State, took a gamble on himself, made Jackson State such a damn good football program, comes into Colorado, a team that averaged 1 to 2 wins every year. Didn't do great the last year. But then this year, what a jump that is. That's just how classic college football is. When you have the right coach, when you have the right personnel from the recruiting stages. Okay, this is why most of these teams, and listen, we can't even say that for a lot of these programs because we have the NIL, we have the transfer portal. That's what's benefiting a lot of these programs. So you get a kid that goes into the transfer portal, and let's say you've got a high-ranked coach. Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say if Andy Reid literally was coaching, let's say he was coaching in somewhere in the ACC. Like, let's say he was coaching Duke. You don't think players are going to follow? You don't think players are going to be like, it's freaking Andy Reid? So sometimes that's what it is when you have the right coach. You build personnel around you. I mean, that's the thing is Deion Sanders. Warren Sapp, you know what's funny is there was a story on Warren Sapp that by the time he retired, Warren Sapp didn't have anything. He literally was like, he hit a wall. It's crazy to me. By the time after football, he didn't have anything. And you know what Deion did? He took a chance at Warren Sapp. It said, come with me in my program, fix this D-line. Now look at it. I mean, what good for Warren Sapp, by the way. For the fact that he could literally come in and make a difference outside, like after years of being in the NFL and make a difference in a program like Colorado. I mean, good for him. That's incredible. But I'm just saying, when you get a coach like that, your personnel, you build a recruiting class, it's very possible. You just got to be able to find the core. Not a lot of these programs can. You know, that's just the reality. Look, you could be undefeated, but if you're not playing against ranked teams, especially those top 10, top 5 ranked teams, whether it's the SEC or the Big 10 or the Big 12 or even, you know, because the ACC only has about 3 teams. I think I've noticed that this year. They only have about 3 teams, maybe 4. But even they aren't even set up to the standard of SEC. That's why I'm like, it can be very challenging, but that's because the SEC's built so much of a powerhouse. It doesn't matter what program came up out of there. I mean, you're watching Brian Kelly struggle, but that's the nature of the SEC. He's been dealing with Notre Dame for a long time. And Notre Dame, how many times have we been ripping our hair out that Notre Dame needs to join a conference? Stop with this independent shit. I'm telling you that, but that's how worked up it gets.
Yeah.
But yeah, good stuff, man. Tomorrow is going to be a fun show. But I'll be thinking of you during your birthday, man.
Thank you.
It's going to be fun. But again, hopefully, the Browns do come away with a win. That would be nice. But that's
if they don't, I see Kevin getting fired probably.
Yeah, but you know what though? Look on the bright side. You're getting closer. You're getting closer to those draft spots. So it may not be as
that's why I said I would not be upset with losing. I would not be upset in the slightest with losing. Because that means that if we can get that number 1 pick, we can get Cam Ward and nobody else can.
That's right. Yeah. There's various possibilities out there. That's why we're so lucky having the NFL. You could either be winning and coming away with a championship, or you could be losing, but yet you could be winning with draft spots. So that
the only way that I would accept something different is if we get the number 1 overall pick and we got a team that wants a quarterback that badly, like a Shador or Cam Ward, and they want to trade to that number 1 spot because they're afraid somebody else is going to
draft capital. Yep.
And we would get 2 first-round picks out of that and then trade back to like that 4, 5, or 6 spot. I am okay with passing on a quarterback if that means we can get like 2 first-rounders, and then we can go pick up a guy like a Will Johnson, a Mason Graham, an Ashton Genty, a Tetaroa McMillan, any one of those guys.
Yeah, you can. That's very possible. We've seen teams do that before, and it has worked out to the benefit, to their own benefit. It has worked before, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Like I said, we are just on fire. That's what we are here on the show. I'm not going to make it so. That would just be horrific of us. We're going to make this show as fiery as possible. Yeah, we are too brutally honest. I mean, these are the work in progress. I'm trying my best here, but we're going to be brutally honest with all this stuff because that's what it's all about here. Appreciate everybody for joining us here on the show. Chase and myself will be back up on tomorrow. Happy early birthday to our good co-host Chase. And let's see what the Cleveland Browns do tomorrow. I got my bet lines tomorrow, so I don't know. I mean, this might be interesting. Hopefully somebody is going to hit it. But yeah, prime predictions tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun. Don't want to end up missing that, guys. We'll see you guys here tomorrow. Chase and myself. Enjoy the rest of the night. We'll see you all tomorrow.